This question was asked in Amazon interviews and can be asked again. So let's solve it together. Hi, my name is Mohit Chavda, ex Salesforce, ex Walmart, and in today's video we'll solve LeetCode problem number 3423, which is maximum difference between adjacent elements in a circular array. Okay, in the question you are given a circular array which is named as nums, and we need to find out the maximum absolute difference between the adjacent elements. So here absolute is mentioned, which we will discuss in the visual representation. Okay, you have to note that it's a circular array, so the first and the last elements are also adjacent. Let's go to the visual representation where we will understand this problem in a better way using examples. Alright, we are here in the visual representation. You can see we have taken an example. We have integer nums array. So if I put the indexes, it would be 0, 1 and 2. So we have to only consider the adjacent elements. So if we talk about the adjacent elements, those would be 0, 1, 1, 2 and 0, 2. Why 0, 2? Because this is a circular array. So you can understand this like this. So 1 connected to 2, 2 connected to 4, 4 connected again to 1. So this is a circular array. That's why 1, 2, 2, 4 and 1, 4. Okay, now if I take two indexes I and j, we have three combinations here: 0, 1, 1, 2 and 2, 0. Now talking about the difference, you might simply do nums of j minus nums of I, but in the question it was mentioned maximum absolute difference, so we have to consider the absolute case. So it's not always nums j minus nums I. You have to do whichever is bigger. Say nums I is bigger, so in that case you'll do nums I minus nums j. So for example, in the last case, if you see, nums of I was 4, okay, and nums of j was 1, because it was at index 0 and I was at index 2, correct? Now if you simply follow this one, you will do 1 minus 4, which becomes minus 3, but that is wrong because we have to take the absolute. So what we have to do is like 4 minus 1, which becomes 3. Okay, so either you can do one thing, you will simply check which one is greater. If nums j is greater, you will do nums j minus nums I. Otherwise you will do nums I minus nums j. Or you have another approach, you can simply use math.abs method. Okay, we can apply math.abs here and then do nums j minus nums I. So in this case, even if nums j minus nums I is minus 3, math.abs of minus 3 will return you 3. Okay, so this is the funda of the absolute difference which was mentioned in the question. Of course, if it's not mentioned absolute difference, then generally we go with nums j minus nums I. These kind of questions you can simply clear out with the interviewer, because he won't give you all the examples. That is something you need to ask to the interviewer, so that you pass all the test cases and you don't miss any trick in the question. Alright, once we have understood the absolute part, the question becomes easy. We simply do the linear search. We have two indexes I and j. For each combination we will simply calculate the difference, and we will have a variable max difference. Whenever your difference is more than the max difference, you set max difference to difference. We'll write the code for that. So here in this case, you can simply see in the first one you have nums of 0 as 1, nums of j as 2. Okay, so you will simply do math.abs 2 minus 1, which is 1, so it gives you 1. Okay, so till now the max difference is 1. Then talking about the case 2, nums of 1 is 2 and nums of 2 is 4, so you will simply do again 4 minus 2, which gives you 2. Okay, so it is more than the earlier difference, so you set the max difference as 2 now. Talking about the third case, because it's a circular array, you'll consider this case as well. Nums of I, which was nums of 2 as 4 and nums of 0 as 1. So you'll simply do math.abs 1 minus 4, which becomes 3. Okay, so 3 is more than 2, so 3 is your max difference, and after this your array is over, so you simply return 3, the answer of this question. Now let's see another example. You can see another nums array which has the different input. So putting the indexes here 0, 1 and 2. Again here you will have three combinations. I put here I and j. First will be I is at 0 and j will be 1, because we need to calculate the adjacent elements only. And the next case, I will be at 1, j will be at 2. and the next case I will be at 2 and j will be at 0. Why this case? Because it's a circular array. In case it wasn't a circular array, you won't consider this case because then they won't be adjacent elements. But because here it was mentioned it's a circular array, so it's something like this: 5 is next to 10, minus 10 is next to minus 5, minus 5 is next to minus 10, and again minus 5 is next to minus 5. So it's a circular array, that's why we taken this case. Okay, now simply checking all the cases. Nums of 0 is minus 5, nums of 1 is minus 10. So you simply do this thing. It would be minus 10 minus minus 5, which becomes minus minus becomes plus. So you take mat.abs of this one, so it is minus 5, but when you do mat.abs it returns you 5. Okay, so till now you have the maximum difference as 5. After this, the next one you check, nums of 1 is minus 10 and nums of 2 is minus 5. Again it becomes like minus 5 minus minus 10, so minus minus becomes plus, so it's like 5 again, which is same as earlier. Talking about the next case, you see nums of 2 is minus 5 and nums of 0 is minus 5. So you again do this math.abs, minus 5 minus minus 5, minus minus becomes plus, so minus 5 plus 5 becomes 0. Okay, but this doesn't cross the current maximum difference, which was 5, so you simply keep that same as 5. After this your loop will stop because you have covered all the cases and you can simply return 5 as the answer. Alright, talking about the approach, you can see it's a very simple approach. You can simply do the linear search in the array. Just you have to take care of two things. One is that because it's a circular array, here it was mentioned, so you have to take one more case where the last element and the first element of the array are connected, so you need to take those as the adjacent element. And number two, you need to take care of the absolute difference, so you will use either mat.abs function, or you can simply check whichever element is greater, you take that first and the subtract the lower one from it. Okay, now I'll take you back to the LeetCode where I'll show you the code of this problem so that you get more clarity about it. Alright, so we are back to the LeetCode. This was a problem and this is the simple solution of this problem. You can see in the beginning I have calculated the size of the array, which is nums.length. Nums is the name of the array. Then I have maintained two variables. One is the current difference. I have named it as diff. In the beginning set the value to 0. It will basically calculate the difference between two adjacent elements. So your I and j will keep on moving, so every time it will calculate the difference between those two elements. I have maintained one more variable, which is the maximum difference, which you will return at the end of this. Max difference represent till now what is the maximum absolute difference that we got. Okay, so in order to cover one of the cases, I just initialized this max difference to mat.abs nums of size minus 1 minus nums of 0, which was our last case here, right? So I took this case in the beginning and I simply initialized my max difference with it. Why I did this? To simplify the code so that you don't have to apply the check inside the for loop whether it's a last element or not. Otherwise you will have to do if else here, because my logic is nums of I plus 1 minus nums of I. If you are at the last element, you can't do I plus 1 because it will give you index out of bound. Yeah, if you're comfortable by doing the if else check, like if it's the last element do this, otherwise that, you can do that way as well. But in order to simplify things, I took the last case in the beginning only because it's a circular array. High probability you can miss or skip that case, so I took that in the beginning only, right? Okay, after this I'll apply a for loop. In the for loop we'll do a simple linear search. I equal to 0, I is smaller than size minus 1, I plus plus. Why did I write I smaller than size minus 1? Because we have to do nums of I plus 1 minus nums of I. If we go to the last element, right, and then we do nums of I plus 1, that would give you array out of bound index. So going back to the LeetCode, you simply apply this check so that you don't get array out of bound exception, and you simply apply diff the current diff is mat.abs nums of I plus 1 minus nums of I, because we have to calculate the difference between the adjacent elements, and this is to calculate the absolute difference. And then we simply check if your diff is greater than max diff, you simply set the max diff equal to diff. Okay, once your loop ends, you simply return the max diff variable, because max diff contains the maximum absolute difference between the adjacent elements till now. Let's try to run the basic test cases. You can see both of our test cases have passed. Now let's click on submit to check whether all the test cases are passing or not. You can see all the test cases, which are 962 out of 962 test cases, are passing, so that which means we have written the correct solution here. And you can also see our code beats 99.43%. that is amazing. So it means it's a great code. I hope you understood the question and the solution. There were two things that we had to keep in mind. One was it was a circular array, so the last and the first element were connected. We took that case in the beginning only. And then the other thing was you have to take the absolute difference, so you have to make sure that you are either using mat.abs or you are applying some check where whichever element is greater, you take the difference from that. Okay, in case you have any doubts, please put that in the comment section. I'll try to help. Alright then, this is Mohit Chabda signing off. Subscribe to the channel and thanks for watching.